The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive dome of silver and light. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats that curved around the central floor. At the center of it all stood Hyun-Woo Kim, the human ambassador. His black suit looked simple compared to the bright robes and strange armor of the other species around him. Hyun-Woo kept his face calm, but inside his heart was beating fast. He had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years. Today might be his last day here. The Valdari Empress Silthara floated above her crystal throne. Her body was made of what looked like living light, shifting between blue and white colors. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The Council has heard all arguments," she said. "Now we must decide the fate of the human species." To her right sat General Thekmol of the Corvin Empire. His thick gray skin was covered in battle scars, and his 4 arms rested on weapons that could cut through steel. His red eyes glared at Hyun-Woo with open dislike. "The humans are too dangerous," Thekmol growled. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "They expand too fast. They fight too hard. They do not listen to wisdom." Hyun-Woo stepped forward. "Honored council members," he began, "humanity has always followed the laws you gave us. We have defended weak species when they asked for help. We have shared our technology and medical knowledge freely. A creature that looked like a walking tree made a sound like rustling leaves. But you refused to slow your growth," it said through a translator device. "In 50 years, humans have built colonies on 47 worlds. The Valdari took 300 years to do the same." "Because we work hard," Hyun-Woo replied. "Because we do not waste time. Is this a crime?" Silthara's light grew brighter. "The concern is not your speed, Ambassador Kim. The concern is your methods. When the Keltar pirates attacked the mining world of Series 7, you did not capture them for trial. You destroyed their entire fleet. They were murdering innocent workers," Hyun-Woo said, his voice getting louder. "Children were dying while you debated what to do. We acted to save lives." "You acted like conquerors," Thekmol snarled. "Your ships carry weapons that could crack planets. Your soldiers are trained from birth to kill. You do not seek peace. You seek control." Around the hall, thousands of alien voices began to whisper and hiss and chirp. Hyun-Woo could feel their fear like a cold wind. They were afraid of humanity, not because humans were evil, but because humans were strong. "We seek to protect what matters to us," Hyun-Woo said. "Our families, our friends, our future. If that makes us dangerous, then perhaps the danger is necessary." The whispers grew louder. Some aliens stood up and pointed at him with claws and tentacles. Others made sounds that the translators could not turn into words. Silthara raised one glowing hand and the hall became quiet. "The vote has been taken," she announced. "By a count of 867 to 0, with no abstentions, the Galactic Council finds humanity guilty of aggressive expansion, excessive militarization, and refusal to accept proper guidance from elder species." Hyun-Woo felt the words hit him like a physical blow. 0 votes for humanity. Not one species had stood with them. "The sentence is banishment," Silthara continued. "Humanity will withdraw from all council activities. Human ships will not travel beyond the 47 worlds already claimed. Human trade with council species will end. This judgment is final." The hall erupted in alien voices. Some sounded happy, others worried. Hyun-Woo stood alone in the center of it all, feeling like the last man on Earth. He pressed a button on his wrist device. The small camera would send everything back to Earth instantly. President Daewon Park needed to see this moment. The whole human race needed to know what had happened here. "So be it," Hyun-Woo said into his device. His voice was quiet, but every word was clear. "The Galactic Council has made its choice. Humanity will remember this day." He turned and walked toward the exit. No one tried to stop him. The aliens watched him go like he was already a ghost. On Earth, deep under the mountains of Korea, President Daewon Park sat in the Global Defense Command Center. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, fleet positions, and economic data. Around a long table sat the most powerful humans in the galaxy. Defense Minister Taimin Choi was a former general with gray hair and steady hands. Chief of Naval Operations So Young Lee looked young for her rank, but her eyes were sharp as knives. Intelligence Director Min Ho Yoon rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. They all watched as Hyun Woo's message played on the main screen. When it ended, the room was silent for a long moment. 867-0, Taemin said slowly. They really hate us that much. They fear us, So Young corrected. There is a difference. Da-eun stood up from her chair. She was not a tall woman, but when she entered a room, everyone noticed. Her black hair was pulled back severely and her dark suit was perfectly clean. She had been president for 10 years, and in that time, humanity had grown stronger than ever before. Fear, she said thoughtfully. Yes, they are afraid, and they have good reason to be. She walked to the largest screen, which showed a map of human space. 47 bright dots marked their worlds, connected by trade routes and patrol paths. Beyond them lay the vast galaxy, controlled by species that thought humans were too dangerous to exist among them. Minho, she said without turning around. How long have we been working on Protocol Prometheus? The intelligence director's face did not change. 15 years, Madam President, since you first took office. And our production capacity? Hidden. Shipyards in 12 systems. Asteroid mining operations in 20. Research facilities that officially do not exist. We can build 10 ships for everyone they know about. Taemin leaned forward. Madam President, you are not seriously considering. They have banished us, Da-eun interrupted. They believe this will make us weak. They believe we will sit quietly in our corner of space and cause no more trouble. She turned to face them and her smile was cold as winter. They are wrong. She pressed a button on the table. Across human space, in hidden bases and secret facilities, alarms began to sound. Orders that had been prepared for 15 years started, moving through encrypted channels. Protocol Prometheus is now active, Da-eun announced. We have been playing by their rules for 50 years. We have been good neighbors and faithful allies. We have accepted their limits and respected their wisdom. She walked back to her chair but did not sit down. As of today, those days are over. If the galaxy wants to see how dangerous humanity can truly be, then we will show them. We will build not just a fleet, but an empire. We will take not just what we need, but what we desire. And when we are finished, they will understand that banishing us was not their victory. Her voice grew quieter, but every word carried the weight of destiny. It was their greatest mistake. 2 years had passed since the banishment, and the galaxy had grown quiet about humanity. Trade ships that once visited human worlds reported strange things. Empty orbital stations, silent communication arrays, colonies that seemed abandoned overnight. The Galactic Council was pleased. They believed their punishment had worked. The humans had learned their lesson and retreated to lick their wounds. They could not have been more wrong. Admiral Jin Ho Song stood on the bridge of the Terras, Wrath, humanity's first dreadnought-class vessel. Through the massive windows, he could see the construction yards that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Hundreds of ships were being built at the same time. Some were as small as fighters. Others were larger than cities. Status report, Jin Ho said to his bridge crew. Captain Yoon Seo-han looked up from her control station. Yard 7 has completed another battlecruiser squadron. Yard 12 is ahead of schedule on the carriers. The new destroyers are testing their stealth systems. Jin Ho nodded. The stealth technology was one of their greatest achievements. Human ships could now hide from alien sensors completely. The galaxy thought humanity had 47 worlds. They had no idea that humans were now building in over 200 systems. And the recruitment program? Jin Ho asked. Better than expected, sir. Ambassador Lim's teams have contacted 83 species. 61 have agreed to join our alliance. Jin Ho smiled. The galaxy was full of species that the Council had ignored or mistreated. The Takari warrior clans who were too violent for Council membership, the cybernetic Nexus Collective who frightened other species with their technology, the nomadic void walkers who refused to settle on planets. All of them had one thing in common. They had been rejected by the Council for being different. Now they were eager to stand with humanity against their former oppressors. Deep in the asteroid fields of the Kepler system, Chief Engineer Boram Yoon watched as her latest creation came online. The matter-antimatter reactor was the size of a small building, but it produced more power than some stars. Containment field is stable, reported her assistant, Engineer Ki-Tai Lim. Energy output is holding at maximum levels. Boram allowed herself a small smile. For 50 years, humanity had struggled with energy production. Their ships were always underpowered compared to alien vessels. Their colonies always needed more fuel. Not anymore. The artificial micro-black holes that powered the new reactors gave humans unlimited energy. They could build bigger ships, stronger weapons, and more powerful shields. The energy problem that had limited human expansion was now solved forever. Begin installation on the fortress ships, Boram ordered. I want every Dominion-class vessel to have full power within 6 months. On the other side of human space, Dr. Seok Jin Han was solving a different problem. His laboratory looked like something from a nightmare. Alien artifacts and biological samples filled every shelf. Computers ran constant analysis on enemy technology and physiology. The Valdari weakness to electromagnetic fields is confirmed, reported Dr. Hai-Jin Park, his research partner. A properly tuned pulse can disrupt their energy bodies for hours. And the Corvin? Seok Jin asked. Their regeneration depends on a specific protein chain. We can synthesize a toxin that will block it. They will lose their healing abilities completely. Seok Jin made notes on his tablet. For 2 years, his team had been studying every species in the Council. They knew their biology, their technology, their psychology. When the time came to fight, humanity would know exactly how to win. What about the adaptive nanotechnology? He asked. Hyojin's eyes lit up. Ready for field testing. The nanobots can analyze any alien technology within minutes and develop countermeasures. Their weapons, their shields, their computers. Nothing will be safe from us. Meanwhile, Ambassador Yoonji Lim sat in a dark cantina on the edge of Council space. Across from her was a Takari war chief named Graktar. His purple skin was covered in ritual scars, and his 4 arms held weapons that hummed with energy. The Council calls us savages, Graktar growled in broken standard. They say Takari too violent for their peace. The Council fears strength, Yoonji replied. They prefer weakness because it is easier to control. And humans, you offer alliance. What you want in return? Yoonji smiled. We want you to be exactly what you are. Warriors, fighters. The Council tried to make you into something else. We will let you be yourselves. Graktar's eyes narrowed. Council has big fleets, many species. Why you think humans can win? Because, Yoonji said, leaning forward, the Council fights to maintain what they have. We fight to take what we deserve. There is a difference. The Takari chief considered this for a long moment. Then he placed one of his hands on the table. Graktar's clans will stand with humans. When you call, we come. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy, in the deep space stations of the Nexus Collective, on the wandering ships of the Void Walkers, in the underground cities of species that had never been invited to join the Council. Humanity was not just building ships, they were building an army. General Woojin Park stood in the strategy room of the command station Hope's End. The walls were covered with maps of Council space, marked with defensive positions and patrol routes. His staff officers worked at tables covered with battle plans and tactical analysis. The human doctrine is now complete, announced Colonel Sungmin Oh. All units have received training in the new combat philosophy. Woojin nodded. The human doctrine was his greatest achievement. Where other species saw war as a necessary evil, humans had embraced it as an art form. Where others sought to minimize casualties, humans sought to maximize victory. The doctrine was simple: hit hard, hit fast, and never stop hitting. Show no mercy to enemies. Give no quarter in battle. Win by any means necessary. What about the Psychological Warfare Division? Woojin asked. Dr. Kim's teams have completed their profiles on all council species, Colonel O replied. They know exactly what frightens each alien race. When we broadcast the fear protocols, entire worlds will surrender without a fight. But humanity's greatest achievement was not visible from any ship or station. In the deep space between stars, construction had begun on something unprecedented in galactic history. The new Terra was more than a ship. It was a mobile planet, a fortress that could travel between stars, a factory that could build entire fleets while moving through hyperspace. Admiral Song visited the construction site once a month to check on progress. The massive structure was already larger than Earth's moon, and it was only half finished. Estimated completion time? He asked the project director, Admiral Kyung-Soo Bae. 18 months for basic operations, Kyung-Soo replied. Full capability within 3 years. And production capacity once complete? 100 ships per day. Full fleet replacement every 6 months. We could fight a war for decades without slowing down. Jin-Ho looked at the growing fortress and felt a deep satisfaction. The council had thought that banishing humanity would solve their problem. Instead, it had created something far worse than their nightmares. Signal all fleet commanders, Jin-Ho ordered. Begin Phase 2 of Protocol Prometheus. Across human space, messages went out on encrypted channels. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields began to move. Construction yards that had been operating in secret revealed themselves. Allies that had been recruiting in the shadows stepped into the light. The time for hiding was over. President Da-Yoon Park received the status reports in her underground office. 2 years of building, 2 years of planning, 2 years of preparing for war. Fleet strength? She asked Defense Minister Tae-min Choi. 12,000 combat vessels, another 8,000 support ships, 60 fortress stations, 300 defense platforms, allied forces. The Takari have pledged 40 war clans. The Nexus Collective will provide cyber warfare support. The Voidwalkers offer their stealth technology. Smaller species are contributing what they can. Da-Yoon smiled. The Council had expected humanity to remain quiet in their corner of space. Instead, they had built the largest military force in galactic history. And morale? Higher than ever. The troops understand what we are fighting for. They know what the Council tried to do to us. Da-Yoon stood and walked to her window. Far above, the first ships of humanity's new fleet were beginning to move toward Council space. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when you banished the human race. Send a message to Admiral Song, she ordered. Tell him it is time to remind the Council of their mistake. The Valdari patrol fleet moved through the Helios sector like ghosts made of starlight. Their ships were things of beauty, curved and flowing like works of art. Captain Velthara commanded the squadron from her flagship, the Radiant Dawn. Her crew of energy beings hummed with confidence. Contact detected, announced the sensor operator. Single vessel, human design, bearing 07 Mark III. Velthara's form brightened with surprise. Human? Impossible. They are restricted to their own territory. Confirmed, Captain. It appears to be a trading vessel. No escort, no support fleet. Velthara considered this. The humans had been quiet for 2 years since their banishment. Perhaps they were desperate, enough to risk illegal expansion. This would be an easy capture. Signal the vessel to halt, she ordered. Prepare boarding parties. Aboard the human ship Silent Thunder, Captain Myung-Soo An watched the Valdari fleet approach on his screens. His ship looked like an old cargo hauler from the outside. Inside, it was packed with the most advanced technology humanity had ever built. Valdari Squadron is moving to intercept, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Soo-Jin Park. 6. Vessel's standard patrol configuration. Perfect, Myung-Soo said quietly. Just what we wanted. He pressed a button on his console. Throughout the asteroid field around them, invisible ships received his signal. 60 human vessels that had been hiding behind advanced stealth technology began to power up their weapons. Incoming, Transmission from the Valdari flagship, announced Communications Officer Jae-woo Kim. Put it through. Captain Velthara's image appeared on the main screen. Her energy form flickered with authority and annoyance. Human vessel, you are in violation of Council Resolution 2847, she said. You will shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Myung-soo stood up slowly. He was a small man with graying hair, but his eyes held the coldness of deep space. Captain Velthara, he said calmly. I am Captain Myung-soo An of the Human Dominion Navy. You are trespassing in territory claimed by humanity. I suggest you withdraw immediately. Velthara's form flared brighter. Human Dominion? There is no such thing. You were banished from Council space. This sector belongs to the Valdari Empire. Myung-soo smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Not anymore. He nodded to his tactical officer. Around the Valdari fleet, 60 human ships suddenly appeared. Their stealth fields dropped like veils being pulled away. Advanced destroyers and battle cruisers materialized from nothing, their weapons already locked onto Valdari targets. Impossible, Velthara gasped. Our sensors showed no other ships. Your sensors are 2 years out of date, Myung-soo replied. Humanity has made improvements. On the bridge of the Radiant Dawn, chaos erupted. Valdari officers shouted readings that made no sense. The human ships were using technology that should not exist. Their energy signatures were completely unknown. Captain, their weapons are charging, the tactical officer reported. Energy levels are off the scale. Velthara tried to maintain her authority. You cannot attack us. We are a council patrol. This would be an act of war. Myung-soo's smile grew colder. The Galactic Council declared war on humanity the day you banished us. We have simply been preparing our response. He turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Park, you may fire when ready. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves surrounding their prey. Their weapons cut through Valdari shields like they were made of paper. Their armor absorbed return fire without visible damage. The Valdari fleet tried to fight back, but their attacks seemed to have no effect. Every time they fired at a human ship, their weapons simply stopped working. The adaptive nanotechnology that Dr. Han had developed was analyzing and countering their technology in real time. One by one, the Valdari ships were destroyed. Not captured, not disabled, destroyed completely. When it was over, only debris remained where the proud Valdari patrol had been. Captain Velthara's final transmission was a scream of disbelief that echoed across space. Myung-soo stood on his bridge and looked at the destruction. He felt no joy but also no regret. This was war, and in war the strong survived while the weak perished. Communications, he ordered. Open a channel on all council frequencies. Jae-woo's fingers danced over his controls. Across the galaxy, every council communication array received the same signal. On every council world, the message would be heard. This is Captain Myung-soo An of the Human Dominion Navy, he said into the camera. To the former Galactic Council and all allied species, humanity sends its regards. We have not forgotten your verdict. We have not forgiven your betrayal. And we have not remained idle. He paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of worlds. You banished us for being too aggressive. You were wrong. We were not aggressive then. We were restrained. That restraint has now been permanently removed. The message ended, but its impact spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were called within hours. Alien leaders who had celebrated humanity's banishment 2 years ago now gathered in panic. Empress Silthera floated above her crystal throne, her usually calm energy form flickering with distress. Around the Great Hall, representatives from hundreds of species demanded answers. How is this possible? Screeched the avian delegate. Our intelligence said the humans had retreated to their home systems. General Thekmal's forearms gestured angrily. It is a trick. A single squadron cannot defeat a Valdari patrol. The footage must be false. But Commander Zixtal of Council Intelligence shook his metallic head. The recordings are authentic. Energy signatures match known human technology, but advanced beyond our projections. The stealth systems alone represent a breakthrough we did not think possible. How many ships do they have? Asked the aquatic chancellor, her gills fluttering with worry. Unknown. Our long-range sensors show increased activity in former human space, but we cannot penetrate their new stealth technology. They could have dozens of fleets and we would never detect them. Around the hall, the noise grew louder. Species that had felt safe behind council protection now realized they might be vulnerable. The humans they had dismissed as dangerous but manageable had become something far worse. Silthera raised her hand for silence. We must respond decisively. If we show weakness now, other species may think the council has lost its power. Thekmol nodded vigorously. I have been saying this for years. The humans should have been destroyed, not banished. Now we face the consequences of mercy. What do you propose? Silthara asked. Military action, immediate and overwhelming. Show them that the council's patience has limits. But before anyone could respond, another alarm sounded. A new transmission was being received on all frequencies. The image that appeared on the great screens was not Captain On this time. It was a woman in a black uniform with silver stars on her shoulders. Her face was calm, but her eyes held the promise of destruction. I am Admiral So-Young Lee of the Human Dominion Navy, she said. 6 hours ago, a Valdari patrol fleet attacked a human vessel in the Helios sector. They have been dealt with accordingly. Murmurs of fear rippled through the council chamber. Let this serve as a warning to all council species, Admiral Lee continued. Humanity no longer recognizes your authority. We no longer accept your restrictions. We no longer fear your threats. She leaned forward slightly, and her voice became harder. For 2 years you have ignored us, believing that banishment would make us disappear. You were mistaken. We have used that time to grow stronger. We have built new ships, developed new weapons, and formed new alliances. The camera pulled back to show the bridge around her. Human officers worked at stations covered with displays showing fleet movements and star charts. In the background, through massive windows, the shapes of warships could be seen stretching to the horizon. The galaxy you knew no longer exists, Admiral Lee said. In its place, something new is being born. You may choose to be part of it or you may choose to resist, but you cannot choose to ignore it. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Silthera spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. How many ships did you count in that transmission? Commander Zixtal consulted his scanner readings. At least 200 in the visible area, but the view could have been limited on purpose. There may be thousands more. The truth was even worse than they feared. Admiral Lee had been broadcasting from the bridge of the New Terra, humanity's mobile fortress. The ships visible in the background were just a tiny fraction of the fleet humanity had built in secret. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the scope of the disaster became clear. Human ships were appearing in dozens of systems, not attacking, but claiming. Setting up orbital platforms and broadcasting ownership signals. Every attempt to communicate with them received the same response. The Galactic Council forfeited the right to negotiate with humanity. We will take what we require. General Thekmol pounded his fists on his console. This is intolerable. We must strike back immediately. But even as he spoke, new reports arrived. The Takari war clans had declared their support for humanity. The Nexus Collective had severed all ties with the Council. The Void Walkers had begun raiding Council supply lines. The galaxy was falling apart, and humanity was just getting started. 6 months after the first human ships appeared in Council space, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. What the Council leaders had believed would be a simple police action had become their worst nightmare. The humans were not just raiding or protesting. They were conquering. Fleet Admiral Donghyun Cho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Flame, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Through the massive viewing windows, he watched as human forces completed their occupation of the Kepler Trade Hub. The station that had once been a symbol of Council prosperity was now flying human flags. Status report, Donghyun ordered his staff. Captain Hae Young-min consulted her tactical display. 200 systems now under Dominion control. 300 more have surrendered without resistance. Our construction crews are already building defense platforms and supply depots. Donghyun nodded with satisfaction. The human Dominion was no longer just a name. It was becoming reality across thousands of worlds. What about resistance? He asked. Sporadic and disorganized. The Council species cannot agree on a unified response. The Valdari want to negotiate. The Corvan demand immediate military action. The smaller species are hiding or switching sides. This was exactly what Dr. Mi Young Kim had predicted. Her psychological warfare department had spent years studying how different alien species thought and acted. They knew that the Council's greatest strength, its diversity, was also its greatest weakness. Signal the planetary governors, Donghyun ordered. Begin Phase 4 of the integration protocol. On the planet Cerberus 3, Governor Wei-jin Seo watched as human transports landed in the capital city. The former Council colony had surrendered 2 weeks ago when human warships appeared in orbit. Now the real work began. The human integration. Teams moved with ruthless efficiency. They set up administration centers, communication networks, and production facilities. The alien population was given a simple choice: cooperate and prosper, or resist and suffer. Most chose cooperation. The Keltar Mining Guild has agreed to increase production by 40%, reported Administrator Young Ho Bae. In exchange, we guarantee protection from raiders and access to human medical technology. And the Valdari energy farmers? Wei Jin asked. They are more reluctant, but they will comply. Their energy output will be redirected to human fleet operations. They understand that refusal is not an option. This was the human Dominion's approach to conquest. Unlike the Council's complex bureaucracy, human rule was simple and direct. Species that submitted peacefully were treated well and given important roles in the new order. Species that resisted were crushed and their survivors became laborers. There was no middle ground, no appeals process, no lengthy debates about rights and representation. President Da-Yoon Park, now calling herself Supreme Director of the Human Dominion, sat in her new throne room aboard the New Terra. The massive chamber was designed to impress visitors with human power and authority. Alien ambassadors and governors came here to learn their place in the new order. Today's visitor was former Empress Silthara of the Valdari. Her energy form flickered weakly as she floated before the human throne. The proud leader who had once banished humanity now came as a supplicant. Supreme Director, Silthara said, her voice lacking its former strength. I come to discuss terms. Da-Un looked down at her former judge with cold eyes. Terms? You are hardly in a position to make demands, former Empress. My people are dying, Silthara pleaded. Your blockade has cut off our energy sources. Our children are fading away. Then perhaps you should have considered that before you banished my people, Da-Un replied without emotion. The Valdari made their choice 2 years ago. Now you live with the consequences. She stood up from her throne and walked closer to the Valdari leader. However, I am not without mercy. The Valdari can still have a place in the human dominion. What kind of place? Silthara asked desperately. You will serve as administrators. Your people's natural ability to process information quickly makes you useful for managing data systems and communications networks. In return, we will provide the energy your species needs to survive. Silthara's form dimmed further. You want us to become your servants. I want you to become useful, Da-Yoon corrected. The old galaxy where species could survive by doing. Nothing productive is gone. In the human dominion, everyone contributes or everyone suffers. It was the same choice being offered to species across the galaxy. The Corvan became shock troops and heavy infantry. The aquatic Nereid were assigned to deep space mining operations. The insectoid Zara became factory workers and technicians. Each species found their place in humanity's grand design. Not as equals, but as parts of a greater machine. Commander Hai-Jin Kwan led the human integration forces, specialized units responsible for transforming conquered territories into productive Dominion assets. Her teams worked with mechanical precision, turning chaos into order within weeks of occupation. Population relocation in Sector 7 is complete, reported Colonel Min Seok-yang. Former council officials have been moved to designated housing areas. Essential personnel have been identified and assigned new positions. Resistance? He-jin asked. Minimal. The few groups that refused integration have been dealt with. The survivors understand the consequences of defiance. He-jin nodded. The human dominion did not tolerate rebellion. Swift, decisive action against troublemakers sent a clear message to everyone else. Order was maintained through strength, not negotiation. Begin cultural reformation programs, she ordered. I want the next generation to grow up understanding human values. This was perhaps the most important part of the integration process. Children in Dominion schools learned human languages, human history, and human philosophy. They were taught that strength was virtue, that hierarchy brought stability, and that the human way was the natural order of the universe. Within a generation, the idea of the old council system would seem as foreign to them as ancient mythology. Meanwhile, the remnants of council resistance continued to crumble. General Thecamol had assembled the largest fleet in Corvan history, but when it met human forces at the Battle of Rigel 7, it was destroyed in less than 6 hours. The human ships fought, with a coordination and brutality that shocked the galaxy. They did not accept surrender. They did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy to enemies who had shown them none. Admiral Song watched the aftermath of the battle from his command ship. Corvan vessels drifted as burning wrecks, while human salvage teams stripped them of useful technology and materials. Signal, General Thecmol's flagship, he ordered. If he survived, he may wish to discuss terms. The general had survived, barely. His ship's life support was failing, and most of his crew was dead. When his image appeared on the communication screen, his gray skin was burned and bleeding. I demand to be treated according to the laws of war, Thecmol growled weakly. Admiral Song's expression did not change. There are no laws of war anymore, General. The council that made those laws no longer exists. There is only the human dominion, and we make our own rules. What do you want from me? Thecmol asked. Your people's surrender, complete and unconditional. In return, the Corvan will be given an honorable place in our military structure. You have proven yourselves to be capable warriors when properly led. It was the closest thing to a compliment that humanity offered to their enemies. The Corvan could serve as soldiers in the Dominion army, or they could die as rebels against human authority. Thecmol closed his 4 eyes and made his choice. The Corvan Empire surrenders to the human dominion. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. The last Free Council worlds were falling one by one. Some surrendered immediately when human fleets arrived. Others tried to fight and were crushed. None escaped. The psychological warfare programs that Dr. Kim had developed proved devastatingly effective. Human broadcasts on every frequency exploited the deepest fears of each alien species. The Valdari were shown images of energy beings fading into darkness. The aquatic Nereids saw their water worlds boiling away. The tree-like Sylvans watched forests burning. The message was always the same: submit to human authority, or face extinction. Most chose submission. On the bridge of the New Terra, Supreme Director Park received the daily reports with quiet satisfaction. In less than a year, humanity had gone from banished outcasts to masters of the galaxy. Resistance levels? She asked Intelligence Director Min Ho-yoon. Down to less than 5%. Most remaining rebels are hiding in remote systems with no strategic value. They pose no threat to Dominion operations. Industrial production? Up by 300% from pre-war levels. Integration of alien manufacturing capabilities has exceeded all projections. Military strength? Growing daily. Every world we control provides more resources for shipbuilding. At current rates, we will have the largest fleet in galactic history within 2 years. Daeun smiled. The Council had feared what humanity might become if left unchecked. Now they knew. Humanity had become exactly what they deserved: their conquerors and their masters. Send a message to all sector commanders, she ordered. Begin preparations for the final phase. It is time to end this war once and for all. The message went out across human space, reaching ships and stations throughout the growing Dominion. 1 year after the first human ships had appeared in Council space, the Galactic Council no longer existed. The Great Chamber on Nexus Prime lay empty and dark. The crystal throne where Empress Silthara had once floated was cracked and dim. The proud banners of 100 species hung torn and forgotten. In their place flew a single flag, the blue and white banner of the human dominion. Supreme Director Dayun Park stood in what had once been the Council's greatest symbol of unity. Now it was her trophy room, a reminder of how completely humanity had triumphed. Through the massive windows she could see human warships patrolling the skies where alien vessels had once brought delegates from across the galaxy. The last resistance cells have been eliminated, reported Admiral Jin Ho-song. Sector commanders, confirm that all former Council territories are now under Dominion control. Dayun nodded with satisfaction. It had taken exactly 13 months to conquer the galaxy. 13 months to transform the dreams of alien cooperation into the reality of human dominance. Casualties? She asked. Minimal on our side. The alien. Losses were significant but within acceptable parameters. Most species chose submission over extinction. This was the wisdom of the human dominion. Give your enemies a choice, serve or die. Most chose to serve. Those who chose death had been accommodated. Former Empress Silthara materialized in the chamber, her energy form now bound by human control devices. She had become Dayun's personal assistant, managing communication networks across the Dominion. Her fall from galactic leader to human servant was complete. The integration report, Supreme Director, Silthara said, her voice hollow and defeated. She held out a data tablet with trembling energy tendrils. Dayun took the tablet and reviewed the information. Across the galaxy, former Council species were adapting to their new roles. The Valdari ran communication systems with their natural data processing abilities. The Corvin served in human armies as shock troops and heavy infantry. The aquatic Nereid worked in deep space mining operations where their ability to survive in hostile environments was useful. Each species had found their place in the human dominion, not as partners or allies but as tools in humanity's grand design. Birth rates? Dayun asked. The first generation of Dominion children is reaching maturity, Silthara replied. They show complete loyalty to human authority. The old Council system is meaningless to them. This was perhaps humanity's greatest victory. The young aliens growing up under human rule didn't remember the old days of species equality. To them, human superiority was the natural order of the universe. They competed for positions in Dominion schools, served eagerly in human organizations, and dreamed of earning recognition from their human superiors. The galaxy's future belonged to humanity, and its children understood this truth. Lord Admiral Jin Ho-song walked through the command center of the Eternal Dominion, humanity's newest and most powerful vessel. Around him, beings from dozens of species worked at control stations, their efforts coordinated by human officers who directed their every action. Fleet status report, Jin Ho ordered. Captain Yeon Seo Kang, his human aide, consulted her displays. 15,000 capital ships operational across all sectors. Support vessels number over 50,000. Defense platforms protect every major system. We can deploy overwhelming force to any point in the galaxy within 72 hours. Jin Ho smiled. The human dominion now possessed military might beyond the dreams of the old Council. No force in the galaxy could challenge human authority. No species could resist human will. What about the exploration projects? He asked. Phase 1 is complete. Our long-range scouts have identified dozens of systems beyond the galactic rim. Preliminary surveys show 3 potentially habitable worlds and significant mineral resources. This was humanity's next goal. The galaxy they had conquered was just the beginning. Beyond the known stars lay infinite possibilities for expansion. The human dominion would spread across the universe itself. Begin Phase 2. I want permanent bases established in extragalactic space within 6 months. On the former Valdari homeworld, now renamed New Sol, Governor Tae-Young Lim oversaw the final stages of planetary integration. The energy beings, who had once ruled their own empire, now lived in designated zones, their power carefully controlled and monitored. Production quotas? Tae-Young asked his staff. Exceeded by 20%, reported Administrator Soo Jin-oh. The Valdari work. Teams are highly efficient when properly motivated. And morale? Stable. The older generation remembers their independence and occasionally causes problems. But the younger Valdari accept human authority without question. In another decade, resistance will be negligible. This pattern was repeated across hundreds of worlds. The alien species that had once ruled themselves now lived and worked for human benefit. Their technologies, their resources, their very lives belonged to the Dominion. But humanity was not cruel to its subjects. Species that served faithfully were rewarded with better living conditions, access to human technology, and sometimes even positions of minor authority over their own kind. The message was clear. Cooperation brought comfort. Resistance brought suffering. Chief historian Nara Shin worked in the archives of New Terra, documenting humanity's rise for future generations. Her official records would tell the story of how a banished species became the rulers of the galaxy. They would inspire human children for centuries to come, but her private notes told a different story. In her personal journal, she wrote the truth about what humanity had accomplished. In less than 5 years, we have transformed from outcasts to emperors, she wrote. We have proven that in a universe governed by strength, philosophical ideals about equality and cooperation are luxuries only the strong can afford. The Council banished us for being too aggressive, too militaristic, too willing to use force. They were right about our nature but wrong about the consequences. They thought that removing us from their society would make them safer. Instead, it freed us from their restrictions. We have become exactly what they feared we might become. And now they serve us. Nara paused in her writing and looked out the window of her office. Below, aliens from dozens of species worked side by side in the city that humanity had built. Above, human ships patrolled the space lanes with casual authority. The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had rejected humanity now belonged to humanity. President Da-Eun Park, now in her 70s but still sharp and commanding, stood in the observation deck of New Terra as it orbited Earth. Below her, humanity's birth world sparkled with activity. The planet that had once seemed so small and isolated was now the center of a galactic empire. Around Earth's orbital space, massive construction projects reached toward the stars. Shipyards that could build entire fleets, research stations developing, technologies that pushed the boundaries of physics, training academies where young humans learned to command alien subjects. But Da-Eun's attention was focused on the newest project. In the distance, barely visible even through the station's powerful telescopes, construction had begun on humanity's most ambitious undertaking yet. The Deep Exploration Fleet was designed for a single purpose: to carry human authority beyond the galaxy itself. Ships large enough to travel between galaxies. Crews trained for missions that might last centuries. Technology advanced enough to conquer whatever they found in the vast darkness between the stars. Supreme Director, announced her aide, Colonel Hyunjin Park. The extragalactic scouts have returned with their first reports. Tae-Young turned from the window. What did they find? 3 nearby galaxies show signs of intelligent life. Radio emissions, stellar engineering projects, possible habitable worlds in the billions. Tae-Young smiled. The human dominion had conquered 1 galaxy. Soon they would conquer many. Signal the construction teams, she ordered. Accelerate the deep exploration project. I want the first colony ships ready within 2 years. As her orders went out across human space, Da-Eun thought about the council members who had banished humanity all those years ago. Most were dead. Now their species reduced to servants of the empire they had tried to prevent. They had feared what humanity might become if left unrestricted. Their fear had been justified, but their solution had been foolish. They should not have banished humanity from their council. They should have surrendered to humanity from the beginning. In the great library of New Terra, children from dozens of species sat in neat rows as their human teacher explained the history of the galaxy. The young aliens listened carefully, taking notes about the rise of the human dominion and the fall of the old council system. "Can anyone tell me why the council failed?" asked teacher Min Kyung Lee. A young Valdari raised her energy tendril. "Because they were weak, Teacher Lee. They valued cooperation over strength." "Very good. And why did humanity succeed?" A Corvin child answered this time. "Because humans understand that the strong should rule the weak. Because humans make hard choices that other species cannot make." Teacher Lee nodded approvingly. "Excellent. You understand that the human dominion brought order to a chaotic galaxy. We gave every species a purpose and a place. This is why our system works while the old council system failed." The children nodded eagerly. They had been raised in human schools, educated in human values.